and this should be a good one. Leenock, of course, represent those Mongols. We've seen how fierce he can be on that Civ, but there's no denying the HRE are powerful in the current meta. Their ability to prolong feudal, their ability to play these hybrid maps with water sources is going to prove critical here. And first thing I'm looking at to open this is, how did Leenock start? Did he get a favorable generation? Does it even matter anymore because of how useful this Gur is that you start with?
Indeed, the usefulness of that Gur just cannot be questioned. It's a massive buff, especially when you don't want to go super aggro in Dark Age. And based on what we have seen from Leenock against Kasva, he doesn't like to go very aggressive in Dark Age on this map. Instead, rather opts to go for that fast feudal approach and just try to play with the chunks.
Yeah, something I'd love to actually see is like Leenock maybe thinking about just trying to outpost rush as soon as he sees the dock reaction with Vortix. Like on the dock though, not on the base. You could, in theory, go for the base, because one interesting thing to think about here with Vortix's spawn is he actually only has one safe tree line. And Leenock now sees this. Like, if he actually pinches in the center, Vortix will run out of trees. And you're talking about a map where you definitely want to play onto those ponds because of the gathering rates on the deep water fish. That would be a huge thing for Vortix to miss out on.
Yeah, that's a great point indeed. A single tower could do a ton of devastation out there for Vortix, but looks like Vortix is the one that's going to even deny the possibility of that, dropping a barracks out there. There's going to be a barracks coming out from Leenock too, so it looks like we should embrace the possibility of a Spearman versus Spearman war out there. Numerical advantage will be on the side of the Leenock. On the other hand, there is the healing power of Vortix.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. I was about to highlight that. We have to remember that the HRE are no pushover and feudal for many reasons. Dark Age as well. And one of the big ones is a while back, they got it fixed. Originally, the healing rate on the Prelate was bad. It was 3.5 a second, which was half of what it was intended to be. It's been fixed. So now that's this unit, sure, you're going to sacrifice your Holy Inspiration buff, but you're able to optimize your Spearman usage. And it means that even against a Civ that can field more initially like the Mongols, you can quickly overwhelm them. Think the Delhi factor, but at even earlier point in the game.
The funny thing here is that usually you see these Spearmen being popped out in an attempt to destroy the enemy docks, but this time around, neither of the players are going for a single dock. So really, for Leenock to do any damage with those spears, he realistically has to go for a tower rush even. Looks like he's just now moving out for his own dock, but he obviously wants to put up a little bit more aggression as well, because for the time being, oh, okay, there we go. We have the docks coming up, so looks like the players just went for the barracks first just to be safe, dropping the docks thereafter.
Yeah, it has to be the dot play. Like, it's too much value to actually give up. And I think part of the reason why they both got spears is they don't want to be torched down on their dock. So expect this to be more of a defensive play. Because I think an issue that the Mongols have right now is, like, because they don't want to outpost rush as much anymore, because it doesn't gain as much value, especially against a Civ like the HRE that can heal early on, you're better off just building these units to defend your investment rather than block your opponents.
Yeah, and obviously you also have to contemplate the possibility of your opponent just overpowering you close to his base with Spearmen, so you want to play this one safe. You don't want to take an engagement where you're just outnumbered. So for Leenock, it makes sense to play this one safe, drop the dock first and only move out with the Spearmen once it's complete. Same thing for Vortix. And it seems that neither of these parties should be able to do much against the opponent's dock because the Spearman numbers seem rather even.
And if the focus does become waterfront and we see a lot of need for wood, something that I'm curious to see if Leenock does, because I've only noticed maybe one or two players doing it so far, but seriously, it's one big way to up your Mongol game, is forestry improved. I'm not memeing Lida. I swear, like, it's a real thing. Forestry is actually useful. Shout out to Wham for leading the way on this. Usually it takes you about 8 to 10 seconds to chop down a tree. You get forestry improved, one chop, done, boom. And I think if you want a lot of wood, it's such a big upside that I'd say that that tech probably pays for itself in 4 minutes if you have at least 10 people working on wood.
Yeah, and we have seen B use that last week on a map Wood Wall to great efficiency, really, when it just comes to the improved forestry tech by itself. The follow-up was not necessarily spectacular. We have seen, you know, the crazy town center rush, but the idea was there, and the tech itself worked out fine.
Yeah, you know, he's an innovator, right? Sometimes he Da Vinci's and sometimes it blows up in his face. That's what we love about B, right? Like, it's clowny, but it's with a purpose. That's actually what I love seeing more players like that, because honestly, experimentation is how you become #1. If you're going to play static, stagnant builds, you're eventually going to get caught out. If you look at pretty much any esports scene at the highest level play in clutch moments and tournaments, so many stories are written off the back of a team that done something different, and people had to adjust, or they ended up winning the entire tournament. I've lost count the amount of esports scenes I follow where that's the exact case.
Yeah, and unpredictability or just being able to do something completely new in a critical moment and surprise the opponent, those are easily things that can win you a single game, and that single game could be the difference maker between losing a key set or winning a key set.
And I just love how this has turned into like not as exactly innovation on either side here. I build spears, you build spears. Like honestly, you could simply imagine that Vortix is just playing Mongols with this type of opening. He is going to rebuild the dock quicker. Leenock kind of out of position trying to set up the outpost first. But do you ever get the feeling we're just going to start shuffling around the lake, building docks a corner apart each time?
It's a possibility, and while that's being done, spearman numbers are still increasing, so at one point we're gonna have a fight where we'll have 20 spearmen on each side, and it's gonna be a very delicate micro of dancing back and forth. As I'm saying that we could be getting closer and closer to that, because in order to destroy the opponent's dock now, you're probably gonna have to get through those spears first. Here we go!
Lee does have the maneuver arrow if he plays this right, but gotta be careful about the way he dances around the fight. Keep in mind they're both still Dark Age, so no feudal coming out. But here's the heals from the Prelate. That's going to optimize, and that will force Leenock back. Needs to actually defend the choke point until the dock is complete, though. And this is the problem that he has. Remember what we highlighted about this. If you're willing to sacrifice the Prelate's Hull Inspiration, you're going to have a fully rejuvenated line. Meanwhile, Leenock over time is slowly going to lose the number advantage.
Oh, Khan just being taken away in time. That was rather close. Tower's gonna get denied for the time being, but the other one providing enough cover fire for Leenock to stay there. And right now, Vortix doesn't seem to be able to push into this one. Spearman plus the tower combined is gonna be more than enough to deal with him.
Pokey sticks out. Leenock is outnumbered here right now. He doesn't want to take a fight in this area. Outpost gonna be burnt down. That's wasted wood for Lee. He gets pushed back into the choke point. Now notice that you can't dive too deep. The arrow slits are going to add up a lot of damage here. That's why he's a little bit hesitant. And you can notice that Leenock is trying to build up a wrap force. This could work, but it needs to target the Prelate straight away. And that is difficult. You're talking about a 90 health unit, and you're attacking it with units that have 6 damage and are melee.
And units that can easily be body blocked by the spears. Looks like Vortix is going to get a beautiful wraparound there. Look at that.
What did I say at the beginning of this series, right? What did I say about Vortix? Like, this guy, in my eyes, like, top 3 micro players in the game. And he's kind of shown, like, you look away for a moment, all of a sudden you're pinched. Leenock losing so many troops there. Now 17 to the 12. And even though Leenock begins his tech up first, Vortix is not far behind him. Keep in mind that Prelate has been healing this whole time, which means this is an optimal full health group of spears that is now going to overwhelm and block Leenock off of this lake.
And overwhelmed they do here. Some of the units are actually inside the tower rather than fighting out there. So numerical advantage massively in the favor of Vortix here. Prelate also gets away. Khan could possibly try to snipe him. But as you said, the dock is likely going down. Here comes the Kondo to try and snipe the Prelate. What's the HP looking like on the Prelate?
I think he's about 8 HP right now. And so he's going to smuggle in a few shots.
It's going to be
he's
close
trying to
then.
play Stealth Forest. I think the Prelate should be going down though. He has been found. 6 HP.
It's a feudal age Khan. It's a feudal age Khan, so he can shoot while moving.
Oh, but he can't see, he can't see!
He's gonna get it!
Okay, that's big. So that's 100 gold down the drain. That's going to delay by 1 villager production. It's not the end of the world for Vortix, though, because think about the lead he just got. There's only 3 spearmen remaining for Leenock, and Vortix has 14. Not only that, he's going to torch down the dock. It's going to be tight. Line jump! It just gets out!
Oh, so small of a detail, yet so impactful. That split second for a light jump to pop out is just enough to make life much more difficult for Vortix, because Vortix is yet to add a galley. Just a split second, and how big of a difference maker it is.
Also, keep this in mind, Vortix had to go back for another Prelate, which means he spent 100 gold on a Prelate instead of his first galley. This is going to delay him further. Now, the good news for him is it's only 1 junk so far, so he can still get, he can still kind of finesse that. He can micro correctly. If 2 junks come out, it gets dire, though, and you can see the rush from Vortix trying to burst this down, sacrificing. This is not the optimal play from earlier where all these units are fully healed. Instead, this is desperation setting in. Second light junk gets out. Heavy diminishing returns as the spearmen are quickly being whittled down, and it looks like Leenock will win the fight long-term on this lake.
Yeah, looks like it, especially because he's coming up with a new dock, and by the time the first galley pops out, most of the fishing eco for Vortix will be gone. Also, nice extra for Leenock that he was able to pick off some of those spears as well close to the shore. Look at that. Vortix isn't even going for a galley now. He's probably gonna give up on this spawn at this point because there's nothing left to fight for.
it's going to take too long to build. The galleys don't build fast, right? So I think he's going to get torched down before he gets it out. By the way, shout out to the 2 archers chasing away the entire spear battalion. That kind of crap is what I live for in Age of Empires. It looks so stupid.
But who is chasing who here, KP? I mean, archers chasing spearmen, but spearmen chasing archers, and the spearmen are actually winning.
Wait, so you're saying bigger stick beats smaller stick being fired through the air? Not bad.
I would say it depends. But definitely the bigger stick beats just a little axe in the hand as the poke comes in and the villager falls dead.
A little stab to the heel and he's gone like that. And now Vortix trying to get what he can out of the remaining spearmen. Won't be able to torch down this dock. And that's problematic because you're looking at a situation where Lee could very easily have 2 docks all by his lonesome. Vortix is struggling to find a way back in. Not the end of the world though, because remember, he's playing HRE. And if you look at the numbers, you can see what his intent is here. Leenock is investing hard into feudal. Vortix is looking forward to castle. He might not have the shores to fish upon, but what he will have is access to those relics.
And once he starts picking up the relics, he can offset the eco difference that there is there in the favor of Leenock right now. Or he could also think about going very aggressive over here, punish Leenock on land by a Burgrave Palace. We shall see whether he goes for that, but indeed, as you said, the intent is clear. He wants to go into Castle Age here. Leenock moving in with the force to try and do some damage, but this force, not so sizable, should be repelled by Vortix. But here comes the tower follow-up. That could make this much more lethal than it looked like initially.
This ain't pretty out of Vortix. It's not that he's micro and badly, it's just there's so many space saturating the area that you can't get good value for the Horsemen. And remember, you're talking about a premium that you're paying, 120 resources compared to 80, and yet it's not working out. Does at least snipe out the Khan. That's going to be important to hiding what he's doing in the backside, because remember that Leenock never got a secondary scout. Means if he wants to know if there's a tech up going on, he's going to have to dive deep underneath the TC.
Yeah, lack of scouting also means that he failed to spot the dock that was built on the right side of the right pawn by Vortix, suddenly adding a galley to the mix on the right side pawn, making this pawn contested. On the northern side, same is the story. Villager was killed, sacrificing his life for his dock to go up, but Vortix is going to have some level of presence on those pawns, and that could easily turn into Hawks as well going forward. Villager barely survives here the onslaught. Tower goes up though, and that could be big, because we talked about this one. Not a lot of fallback options for Vortix.
Oh, baby. It's the Burgrave. That's his fallback option. That's an all-in play there. Vortix, dangerous game he's playing here. He needs maximum value in the first 5 minutes, or this will fall flat. Remember that Leenock, although he's getting harassed on the pocket ecos, on those deep fish rather, he is still economically ahead, right? Like, if you think about this matchup, sure, you can say that the HRE are rushing up to castle, but I'm thinking about like the way that they've invested and what they still have to show for it. Leenock is going to be pushed off of the waters, but he still has min-map control. So if Vortix wants to gain control of this game, he needs to quickly surge out and block out these deer stacks that Leenock is now relying upon.
Exactly, as you said, we've talked about this one multiple times before. If you get pushed off from the water on a map like this one, suddenly you will be starving really badly, and it's pretty difficult to transition to other sources of food, especially because there is not much to be found elsewhere other than the middle of the map where all the berries are at. So, as you said, if Vortix can establish map control here, he could easily starve out Leenock in a matter of minutes.
Oh, I like this. This could be big. Vortix may have made a mistake. If he parks near the shore, he can be torched by the spearmen. So he actually might end up giving over control of the southern pond, allowing Leenock to sustain himself long term. You can see the torch damage coming out into the dock now, as he's trying to just galley spam down as many land units as possible. It means he's going to be sacrificing this pond, and it means that there's going to be recovery for Leenock in the northern pond. Southern one definitely full under control of Vortix though, and he needs it, because if you look, you can see the issue with this play that Vortix made is if your food income is bad, then the outlook for Burgrave is bad. He barely has surplus to push both man-at-arms and keep villager production up.
Yeah, that's exactly it, as you said. And he needs a ton of food, because not only is he going for the Burgrave Palace, he's going for the most food-heavy unit of all available in the Burgrave Palace, the men-at-arms. So he desperately needs all that food that he can grab, and so far he was sustaining himself using just inspired villagers on berries. He desperately needs a more reliable and better gathering rate food source for himself here.
And, you know, when we talk about Vortix and HRE, there's a long history to this, right? I would actually say Vortix, for a long time, was probably the best HRE player. I think he was phenomenal at turtling and finding longevity in games where he'd surrender 80% of the map. Keep in mind that this is a game where he went regnant. He's forfeited a lot of the map, but he's not going to have the infinite gold trickle we're used to seeing on this guy. He has a timer on him right now. If by 20 minutes he's not taking map away from Leenock, I actually think the Mongols take this quite convincingly.
Yeah, indeed. That's a great point that you bring up, especially because Leenock, off the back of this, he has expanded to 2 TC, so he's slowly building up that eco lead, and as you said, sustainability is a bit of a question over here for Vortix, because the Burgrave Palace, it's good to spam out units if you can afford them, but right now, Vortix is struggling to do so. He's going to have the relics in, which is going to help offset that eco difference, but you see, we already have Castle Edge in here for Leenock, and he's gonna be more than happy to just go for a mix of crossbows and men-at-arms here, so really, that Burgrave Palace, he didn't come online as fast as Vortix hoped it would, partially thanks to the fact that Vortix is struggling to access food.
I also think the Burgrave loses value if you already have 3 military production buildings. And if you look in Vortix's base and do the count, you'll see what the problem is. Like, he built the racks early on, right, to get the spearmen, and then he built double stables. So you can say that this way he has, like, a good comp, right? He's got cavalry and melee, but we just talked about the fact that he's burdened. He doesn't have enough food. And he inflated that by an extra 5 production buildings. The whole concept behind the Burgrave Palace is on limited resources, you bulk up to 25 units quickly after having no military production. I actually think that the Burgrave is pretty dysfunctional in the current meta because of the prolonged feudal, and I do not know what Leenock's villagers are doing. Seek an asylum, and they are going to be declined.
Yeah, I mean, that's a harsh way for the border control to work, but let's just say that these guys, they did not get the asylum they wanted.
Clearly, you've never played that game. What's that game? The one where you just like you're the border patrol.
Papers, like, Please is what you're talking about.
Yeah, there you go. This was just Papers, Please after dark.
I mean, Blood Please is probably more relevant for the situation though, because the men-at-arms, they're finally finding some value, and there's a lot of blood to be found there. Leenock bleeding a lot of villagers on that gold mine thanks to those men-at-arms.
Yeah, but he's poking Pro on the backside as well, so Vortix isn't free from harassment the other way. And the man-at-arms are going to start getting answered, not just by Leenock's own man-at-arms, the crossbows he's building. And this is always an advantage you'll find you have against the HRE. This Civ does not want to build ranged units. And I think it actually hurts them so often, especially in this matchup, because if you think about these two Civs, like, on one side, man-at-arms are almost always a given. On the other side, crossbows are almost always a given. Now, I don't know if you've been checking your counter charts recently, Lidakor, but last time I checked, crossbows beat man-at-arms.
Yes, they do, and as you said, HRE reluctant to add their own range units. Usually they just stick with the mangonels, if any, but we don't see any of those for Vortix. He's just stuck on men-at-arms, at least the 2 that is still left, because he's not really adding more army behind this one. He's down to just 1 man-at-arms. Now, not a single one left on the battlefield. He only has 2 knights to work with. Behind this one, though, not even noticing his villagers are getting slain by the wolf, so all that hard work, all the effort put into killing the villagers of the opponent will be offset by good old wildlife.
And he turn around and deal with it now. I mean, you don't want to kill it too quick, Lidakor. Let's be real here. You know, you can't eat it. And the HRE, they are greedy buggers.
Why
they
can't
want to
you?
Eat everything on the map.
Have you ever thought about that?
So, sorry, are you about to propose to the stream that we should be eating dogs?
No, wolves is not a dog. I was like, there is no domestication there. It's a wildlife.
All right, well, there you go, guys. Lidakor is going to be retiring from casting to pursue his long-sought career as a packed meat producer of wolf.
I mean, I don't think that business would be booming that much, so I'll probably have to step back from that idea. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people that would love to eat wolf.
I don't know, I've not really thought about it. I just imagine, like, what would happen is you'd start, and 2 years in, you go out of business when a scandal comes out that Puppy Paw's body was found in one of the food processors. With your defensive statements being, technically, he's a puppy.
I mean, he could grow big by that time, no? Like, he's not gonna remain a puppy forever.
I think he's already big. I haven't seen him in person. I mean, now it just sounds like we're saying Puppy Ball needs to get some gains. We'll have to see if he can get those gains, by the way, folks. We'll be checking him out later against Marine Lord after this series, but right now, checking in with what's happening around the backside. Vortix snuck his way in. Leenock is going to react, but there's not enough room in this inn for everyone, so a few more going to be going down. Nice little snipe there. Worthwhile for Vortix, considering it's just a 2-night investment.
Yeah, it's a really good investment out there. He gets away with quite a lot of HP left on those knights and a ton of idle time cost, so the 3 villagers killed is just a cherry on top of the cake. Really, the value is the idle time that was there, and you see, Linock, he's having a lot of idle time issues. 33 of his villagers are idle, half of his eco entirely. Yeah. What's up with this? Ooh, uh-oh. Villagers just did not go back to lumberjacking here.
He done that time-old mistake on open maps of dragging your whole army to one location and doing nothing. Like, that's what's happening here. Leenock is reacting with full force. His numbers actually look really bad right now, if you think about it. Considering the position he finds himself in, the way he's been eco-boostering himself up, then look at the numbers for Vortix. Like, close to 20 man-at-arms, Knights, transitional Horsemen potentially ahead of us. I think the issue I'm seeing for Lee is he hasn't set up outposts in the midfield, so he actually lacks the mobility to both go aggressive and defensive.
Indeed, and map control eventually is going to come into play, because you see Vortix is controlling, or at least contesting, the other opponent on the left side, and the berries in the middle, that's by far the largest source of food that you can have on this map, and if you think about that, that hill in the middle to be controlled is massive value for Vortix, especially for the HRE, being able to even inspire those berry villas, and as you said, Vortix is doing a much better job taking control over the middle part of the map.
If you actually think about it, with the buff gathering rates you get from Holy Inspiration, you're close to boar gathering rates on berries. It's pretty disgusting when you think about these things in this way. I mean, you could argue it's justified, though, Lidakor, because, like, to get these berries, he does have to play out into the middle of the map where boars usually are.
That's the trade-off of this map, right? It feels so juicy that you can go for the berries in the middle, but if you think about it, you really have to contest this map control here. Like, you have to fight for every single berry bush in the middle, and for Vortix to maintain control over it, he's going to have to invest a lot of resources into army.
And you usually use bait to catch fish, but it kind of feels like Leenock's baited, thinking he could have these fish for free, as we notice the Hulk does come out from Vortix, and you do see the Springles to counter. However, if Leenock's not careful, they could get a little bit too close, a little bit too frisky, but it looks like mistakes made there. Actually, Vortix ends up attacking the Khan. Don't ask me how a Khan, a light cavalry unit, tanks that many ballistic shots to the face. He just does.
Maybe he dodged it. Or he just hit him in the shoulder and he lost one arm or something.
I think
he's gonna gain it back. I mean, it's regen, right?
Maybe he's just got like a really good armorer, right? That built a really nice helmet for him. Like, it looks furry, but it's actually got strong metal. He just headbutts the ballistas. Because you need several shots to bring him down. And it looks like he's trying to bring him down now. The wraparound coming in. Vortix on point with the march of the man-at-arms and the horseman around the backside. He's going to expose it all. Leenock has to stand his ground with the crossbows and the spearmen in limited numbers. And quickly being overwhelmed. Defense arrow will come out. Siege is being ignored. He wants to take down any target that can threaten the man-at-arms mass. But he's down to single digits. Vortix quickly falling in numbers, but replacing it with a second wave, because behind this, look at the horseman count that awaits. Vortix ready to spring an assault with an extra 10 horsemen diving into the eco.
Beautiful, beautiful engagement here, really, for Leenock. He used that choke point to perfection, Spearman focusing the horsemen, crossbows the men-at-arms. But as you said, this is just one part of the equation here. You managed to take a fight, and that was a great fight for you, but you are not really well set up for what is to come from Vortix, which is a hardcore switch into Horsemen, some of those being sent to raid, but the other group is going to be sent into the middle to snipe the trebuchets, snipe the Springolds, and most importantly, the crossbows.
I'm sure there's some people right now like, why Horsemen? Why don't you want to win, Vortix? Why not? Why not Knights? You're playing as HRE. Come on. He's playing as HRE, yes. He has 4 relics, yes. But remember, he built a Burgrave palace. So that's why we're going Horsemen instead. He can't afford both man-at-arms and Knights on his current income. I actually think this is a really crafty switch-up. It's quite the evolution as well, and it fits the current meta, because right now the late-game meta is all about food and wood, and Vortix in this mid-game is already prepping for exactly that.
Obviously, when you have a good front line of Horsemen, you can also mix in some Landsknechte, and it's a little bit more difficult for your opponent to deal with that mix. So that could also be part of the equation for him. But right now, it's all about countering those crossbows. And a scary thing for Leenock is that he's still not really prepped to deal with all the horsemen. Technically, he has 13 spearmen, but I don't see them anywhere. I think they're defending against the horseman raids, and they are going to be missing from this battle dearly.
Oh, lordy.
Uh-oh.
And look, everything's exposed on the front side, both the villagers as well as the crossbowmen. He does have the Yam to back away, but there the spearmen are. They were hiding, building up the Springwood. Wave of man-at-arms now wrapping around, though. The pinch comes in, the crossbows in trouble and overwhelmed. A heavy investment for Vortix, but one that will yield results here. Army likely to be wiped. Spearmen might be able to somewhat clean up, but the detail that matters is the number of man-at-arms that are still standing, as the crossbowman count diminishes down close to 0.
It was a costly fight here for Vortix, but as you said, the key thing is that he got rid of the crossbows, so suddenly the Burgrave Palace and the men-at-arms spam once again can come online and just deal with the spearmen, deal with the inferior men-at-arms of the Mongols. For now, Vortix is gonna pull back his forces, but getting rid of all the trebuchets that were shelling his castle and getting rid of all the crossbows is massive value for Vortix, who is still sitting on 4 relics, is more than happy to take this game into a very long one.
Yeah, and Vortix, keep in mind that one thing he could optimize for here, I'm not a fan of what he's done in the front line, no TC. So he's been repairing for stone this whole time. E-repairs, yeah, it got nerfed, but it's still a phenomenal tool, and it's something you should be leveraging in here. I think that's maybe one way that Vortix could optimize. If you consider the amount of stone he spent on repairing, he definitely could have afforded that second TC.
Yeah, that's a great point. Or even just chain in that building. It's not like it's super far away because you already have quite a lot of forward buildings. But as you said, emergency repairs would have helped so much to save stone here for Vortix.
Now, one thing that has happened is the loose transition from Vortix has allowed him to take both sacred sites. Linock is going to have to send troops up there to defend. Would love to see Vortix patrol the area with a few troops so that he forces a harder investment, because right now, the weakness of Linock's comp is he can only play center. Look at his troops, right? They're all static. So if he moves out to the flanks, Vortix can rush down the center. That's why I don't expect Linock to react to these sacred sites quickly.
Indeed, and at some point he's gonna have to, and this is a moment that Vortix is waiting for. But as you said, Leenock's army is static, it's very slow moving, so he's already going to struggle dealing with all these raids that are coming in, let alone sending some units to the flanks to decap the sacred sites, because he knows the moment he does that, Vortix is just going to flood his base from the front. But still, you're gonna have to find a way to deal with these horsemen, because it's getting increasingly annoying for Leenock to have his eco raided over and over again. Yeah,
and you're kind of neck and neck on the eco count, but you're up against a Civ that maybe like a third of the eco right now is being buffed up. In fact, one tough part I do see about this build for Vortix, and it's another reason on the list of reasons why I think Burgrave loses games now. Maybe Vortix can win this still, but I think it's like not helped him go Burgrave, is that you don't have the ability to fluff up your product count anymore, right? Look at his product count, it's still 1. So he's not buffing all these lines moving out from the Archon. He's not getting the bonus gold that he'd have otherwise. Like, if you think about this long term, like, Man-at-Arms, you know, it was great for him, but if you think back to when he built that Burgrave, in the first 2 to 3 minutes, it didn't really achieve anything that he couldn't have with the initial buildings he had.
Ooh, Springle's finding a beautiful angle, getting rid of the first Mangonel here. Cavalry charging in though, finding a good angle on the Springles here. Still getting massacred by the Spearmen though.
He needs to get out. This is a bad fight to take. This is the crawling that continues.
Oh,
Vortix is losing these fights. Villagers panicking, rushing in, trying to help, but the numbers do not work out for him. Vortix now in dire tides. Keep goes down. Mangonel is going to be sniped out. Trebuchets continue to crawl in, and no standing army ready to fight for Vortix. There's plenty of man-at-arms, but they are not here on the front line. Instead, Vortix will bow down to the Spirit Force. Mongols once again coming in clutch. Linock will take the first point.
He had to sacrifice so much to get rid of those Springles that he had nothing left standing. And in the end, Leenock grinds him down. Terrific micro from both sides, really. So many delicate fights, so many key engagements, so many small details coming in, like the junks popping out just before the docks went down. Key details slowly swinging in the favor of Leenock. That's what decided this game in his favor. And ultimately, he is the first one on board with game number 1 in his pocket.
Yeah, and the big key detail is good. Like, I mean, I started the monologue. Maybe I should have saved it for the post game. Let's talk about Burgrave Palace, folks. I feel like it's time we had a discussion. Everyone paying attention. I'm gonna be like that guy that says drugs are bad, kids. Okay, Burgraves are bad. Don't build them. They really aren't good right now. I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe this, and hopefully, you know, maybe there's some pro players in the chat that want to prove me